Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Jakks Logos. Folks, if you run a company or you're the person in charge of coming up with giveaway items, the handouts, caps, shirts, if you want to dress your team members, your sales team, if you want to outfit them with jackets, shirts, vests, sweaters, whatever, Jakks Logos is the group to call. Not only do they do the clothing line, but you can see right here, they also, look at this, that's the Sports Source logo that they did. They do a great job on bags like this. This thing, when they first got it in and they were selling them, they were less than $30 a pop. This is a top-of-the-line bag. They have Nike clothes. They have cutter and butt clothes. This is great stuff. They also work with Nova Copy, who's on our show. They do these mugs. So Jakks Logos, let me tell you, the phone number is going to be there the whole time. I've dealt with these kind of companies for 20 years. Best one I've ever seen. Jakks Logos. Okay, very quickly, want to get a shot over at the YP board right now. That is your new team. If we can pull out a little there we go. It's the Nova Copy board. They always get mad if I don't say Nova Copy board. There you see the new Tennessee basketball players, 8 of them. You see where they're coming in. Their guard forward is listed there, where they come from, JUCO, high school, transferred in, prep school. My question, though, a lot of excitement about this group, and I'm fine with that because I think Donnie Tyndall's done a good job of grabbing a bunch of kids very quickly. But do you feel better about this roster than you would have Conzo Martin's roster?
No, I don't feel better about it. I thought those other guys were a solid bunch of recruits. You had the 41st recruiting class in the country at the time, and I just don't – these guys may be an upgrade. They may fit his system. But as far as player per player, I think you were better off with Martin's players than you are with these guys.
Yeah, I would either lean a little bit towards Conzo's or at the very worst, I'd say they're about level. But because this group fits Donnie Tyndall's style better.
And that's important. Yeah. That's important.
Well, you hope he's recruiting it. I mean, the other side of this, he could be out there. And Chuck, let me get you to step on in here. He could be Chuck Cavallari's lady. He could just be having to fill slots. I mean, we assume these guys are going to fit the system. The thing, if you're going to look for positives, in my view, you got a lot of experience here. Whereas it would have been 4 freshmen, you would have had Thompson and Davis back with Conzo Martin. But you would assume that having some veteran guys, that to me is the positive. Your thoughts on this roster? Do you feel better?
A little bit better, but there's an asterisk. If Dietrich Mostella gets it through the clearinghouse, he's the highest rated guy. I think he could be a difference maker. Without him, not so much. But I do like the fact you got 2 seniors and 2 junior college transfers.
Okay, Chuck?
How is this group going to do when you go on the road in the SEC and play? I mean, that's what we don't know. For that reason and that reason alone, I would go with Conzo's guys. And losing Kofor to me was huge. I thought he was somebody that could have come in and really filled a void on this team.
All right. And I don't want to sound like I'm too negative on these guys, but they're going to have to play. Conzo's guys are going to have to play too. But I just think that you look at where they went and where these guys come from, and I think there's something to that.
Well, you had guys that went to Florida State, Xavier, UNLV, Virginia, and you got guys coming from Florida Gulf Coast and IUPUI. That doesn't mean they can't play.
Exactly.
But it is, I think you have to pay attention to that. Pops Njai, by the way, is in summer school. Jury's still out on whether or not he'll be with the team come winter when the thing starts. Very quickly, though, back to Conzo Martin for a second. Bruce Pearl told Jimmy Himes, who was at the SEC meetings this week, told him on Sports Talk this week that Buzz Peterson left him, Pearl, a good roster, and that he left Conzo Martin a really good situation. But he said Martin simply maintained the program. Thoughts?
I totally disagree. I mean, I thought it was night and day in what Bruce Pearl inherited.
You don't think Conzo maintained the program?
No, I mean, in terms of the group that you inherited as a coach, Bruce Pearl did not leave a great program for Conzo Martin.
Oh, okay.
And Bruce inherited a pretty good group, and his first 3 years were a lot better with that group than his next 3.
With Watson and Lofton and Smith.
Exactly.
Mark Pankratz was on your show this week, and he talked to me today before the show. He's not buying it. He was on both staffs. He was on the staff that Pearl left behind when Pearl lost his job. He was on the Martin staff. And he says that's not the way it was. That team was picked for 11th out of 12 teams in the SEC at the time. So for Pearl to come back and say, I left him a gold mine, those guys weren't playing under Pearl. They were sitting behind Stephen Pearl. They were sitting behind Melvin Goins. And he said that he was the one that provided Jarnell Stokes. Mark was involved in that. He says that is not the case at all, that they had to start from scratch afterwards. Your thoughts on Pearl's comments?
I don't agree with him whatsoever. I mean, Mark pointed out that a lot of the guys that Bruce Pearl had talked about that were there for him weren't established. Jordan McRae has said himself, and Mark has said this, Pancratz said it too, he may not have even survived or made it with Bruce Pearl there. So, yes, he was there, but he was developed by Conzo Martin and that staff, plus basically delivered Jarnell Stokes is the way he said it. That's inaccurate because he wasn't going to go to Tennessee after he left.
Yeah, well, according to Mark, Pearl talked to him just a couple of times. It was Steve Forbes that had led that recruiting, and when that staff lost his job, Tennessee was back off the list. And then Tennessee got back in because Jarnell's brother went here. Tennessee had the scholarship that was open. So I will just say this. In 3 years, Conzo Martin had an awful lot of opportunities to say bad things about Bruce Pearl. Never heard him say one bad thing about Bruce Pearl. Mm-hmm. Bruce Pearl tends to open his mouth and talk about Conzo Martin maintaining the program. Before he said, well, they didn't carry the flag as well as they should have. One has class. One is showing us more and more, in my opinion, that he lacks a little bit of it. Pearl also said this week he jumped at the Auburn job because he was their first, second, and third choice, and he wanted someplace that wanted him. He said that Tennessee let him know that they didn't want him at that point. Well, the job wasn't open at that point, so that's an issue. Also, he didn't point out that, as he told the Birmingham News, Auburn not only wanted, they were the only school that wanted him. He really didn't have any other choices. But thoughts on him saying that Tennessee didn't want him? I mean, are you surprised by that, or should he stop talking about Tennessee at some point?
100% accurate.
Yeah. And why didn't Tennessee come out and say that, as we've said 100 times on this show, when it could have nipped a lot of the Barney Fife things in the bud?
Nip it in the bud. You got to nip it in the bud. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about autonomy and Division 4. Come on back on the Sports Zone.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television.